Welcome back. On your Do Now today, I was asking you to describe what does it mean to be in a Cold War? What are some things countries that are in a Cold War might do? So, a Cold War is different from a hot war. Hot war is where you're shooting each other and killing each other. A Cold War is where neither side likes each other, they hate each other, they are ready to go to war with each other, they've built up their armies, made allies, they've got their weapons pointed at each other. They're ready to go to war at any moment. They're just waiting for something to trigger the actual fighting. Cold Wars also have extreme competition. Both countries are competing to be the best at everything. So it's this hatred, and both countries are on the verge of actually going to war and killing each other. So they might build up their weapons, they might create allies, they're going to position their troops, point missiles at each other, constantly threaten, and be ready for war, but never actually do it. Today, we're going to be talking about the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union. And we're going to be talking about sort of how it came about. Why did the US and the Soviet Union not like each other? So, here are the two countries. Obviously, we got the United States over here. Here's the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists, but most of it is now Russia. So, if we say Russia, I know what you mean. The Soviet Union is Russia plus a lot of other countries they had conquered. Um, so the Soviet Union is a little bit different than Russia, but if we use that for our class, it's the same thing. So it's the US versus the Soviet Union. It's also capitalism versus communism. The US is the capitalist country, Soviet Union is the communist, and they're fighting for their type of government. One of these types of governments is going to conquer the world. Right? And the US sees communism as evil, the Soviet Union sees capitalism as evil. Right? So they're fighting to spread their version of the government. Remember, communism is this idea that you're going to create equality, but they never really do. Instead, they take away people's rights and freedoms. It's very oppressive government. Capitalism is about people having economic freedom and choice. Um, this Cold War is going to start right after World War II. Both the Soviet Union and the United States were allies in World War II. They were on the same side. They were fighting against Hitler. But as the war came to an end, it became very clear that these are the two most powerful countries in the world. After World War II, there's really only two countries that are really successful, and it's the US and the Soviet Union. One of them is going to be the most powerful country in the world. It's a question of who, right? And you can't have both be the most powerful. There needs to be one. So they're in this competition to see who is the strongest, who is the best. And during their time as allies, they never really trusted each other. They never really liked each other. And after World War II, that distrust just got worse. They always assumed the other one was trying to start World War III at some point, and they didn't want to work with each other anymore. Like I said, they're always competing to be the best at everything. It wasn't just about military, it was about wealth, it was about technology, it was about sports, it was about everything. And to make matters worse, both sides have nukes and are willing and threatening to use their nukes against each other. All right, so if we get into some more of the specifics about what actually happened, the conflict's really going to come up in the rebuilding after World War II. Right, the world was destroyed. It had to be rebuilt, but how is it going to be rebuilt? Who's going to be doing the rebuilding? Right, obviously, America hopes to turn all these war-torn, destroyed countries into democracies and capitalist countries, just like us. The Soviet Union wants to build them all up as communist countries. So there's this big disagreement about how these countries should be rebuilt, um, and neither side trusts each other. Ultimately, what happens is they each get to rebuild certain areas. So part of the world gets rebuilt by America, part of the world gets rebuilt by the Soviet Union, and the world gets divided and cut up into what we call spheres of influence. So the US and the Soviet Union, they didn't conquer other countries, but they rebuilt these countries and said, hey, you got to do exactly like we want you to do. You're under our influence, under our control. We're kind of telling you what to do, and you're going to be on our side if World War III ever breaks out. And they both want control over the world. This Cold War is really a fight to see who can get the most allies, who can get most of the world on their side. And this is how the world got cut up. Blue is America's side, right? These are capitalist countries. The red is going to be communist countries like the Soviet Union. Green are the countries that aren't really on either side. Um, Central and South America is kind of disputed. Usually it ends up on America's side, although it's not um, as closely allied as, say, Europe and Australia. And if we're looking at this map, where do you think war would break out? If the US and the Soviet Union were to start fighting, where might that happen? Well, it's going to be anywhere these lines come in contact. Blue versus red, maybe red versus green. That's where these wars are going to happen. So, a lot of places in Asia and Europe, people are looking at as potential conflicts for World War III. To zoom in, this is how Europe is cut up, right? Kind of right down the middle. We have the Soviet side, the communist side, versus the American side, the capitalist side. Right? And this way, this is cut in half for decades, like 40, 50 years, Europe is going to be cut in half. We're going to watch a couple videos that talk about the causes of the war, as well as something called the Marshall Plan, which was the plan the U.S. did for rebuilding countries after World War II. You can pause this video and watch with the rest of the class. So your assignment for today is to read and annotate, but also to summarize. Right? We're trying to wrap up big ideas. We're trying to explain causes. A lot of level 2 stuff today. If you need help, let me know.